That's where the mysteries grow. There is a place where nobody
Hello, everybody.
goes. And if
It's
you
Grizzly
decide
once
to
again
go
from
there,
Lexington, Kentucky,
beware of the beast. The exit
from
is
coast to
far.
coast, all around the world.
The legends all say
I have a
that
special guest with us
creatures
this evening, Michael.
gigantic feet all covered in
How you
hair.
doing, Michael?
And those
I'm
who
doing all right. How you doing?
always scared.
Doing wonderful. I'm glad you're on the show. I heard you have a lot to tell us.
Yeah, I got a whole lot. I got my own show, you know.
Yeah, what's the name of that show?
It's called the Pork and Bean Show with
Pork and Bean.
with Brian Bland and Michael Harrell. I'm the Beans. I'm Mr. Beans. Yeah. We call it a Pork and Bean Show because we're not researchers. We're all friends. We're friends of the Sasquatch people. And we only interview people who are friends of the Sasquatch people. So we're in our third season now. It's like 120, 130 shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
All from people who are friends with Sasquatch, or they have a spiritual relationship, or a mentor relationship, or a student relationship. It's spiritual or something like that. It's not, it's not about having a beer or something like that. It's more like a family. If you're friends with Sasquatch, they don't really have like a friend zone. You go from friends to family right away. If you're accepted by them, then you're accepted by them worldwide, and then you're considered family. And that's from birth to death, and I'm pretty sure it goes to other lifetimes too.
That's interesting. So how does all that work?
How does which part of it work?
Your radio show, when it talks about friends with Bigfoot and spiritual.
There's a lot of people. We've got, like I said, 120 people that we've talked to, something like that. And I just tell their stories, Maybe you haven't heard those stories. Your stories are about encounters with a mysterious, right?
Right.
That's different than Sasquatch gifted me. Sasquatch are teaching me this. Sasquatch is teaching me that.
Yeah, I have some encounters where people say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't call it an encounter. I call it I don't know. There's kind of like a unity thing. It's definitely like family. It's like can you imagine the best friend you ever had, say in high school or something, right? And you guys are real tight. And then you grow a little older, and then people, you move apart, and he moves to another state, right? You're still best friends with him. You may not talk to him for 20 years, but if you pick up the phone, it's right there, right?
Right.
That's how it is with Sasquatch. Once they touch you in the heart, and it's family, then they don't have, like, I don't see them. I don't go out in the woods. They come to me. They visit me. They give me gifts from time to time. And I've been friends with them since 2012.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I get all the same kind of stuff that other people do. They have rocks thrown at my house and little pebbles and owl calls, and they give me gifts, all kind of gifts. I got a gift. It's like, here's a rock they gave me.
Huh.
And it was like, I had a feather around here somewhere. Oh, yeah, here's a feather. 12 years, they only gave me 2 feathers. This is one of them. So I don't ask them for anything, right? Nothing.
Right.
I don't demand anything from them. I don't even question them. I don't even know the Sasquatch name of the Sasquatch that I'm working with. It's like they don't want to be on that. The level that they want to be on with me is nonverbal. So I'm the one who has to do the work to feel the connection to them, and I do. So and maybe it's hard to understand, but I feel them every single day since 2012. They're now, because they do this mind speak thing. They have this soul thing where they're always connected. So whenever I talk about them on a show, they're right here. So my Sasquatch are right here with me, and your Sasquatch are right there with you.
That's interesting. How many do you are around you, basically?
Well, there's a local clan here in Savannah. I'm inside Savannah, the city, so, but I don't actually go to the woods or anything. They still come in and visit me. They give me little toys, and sometimes they give me a dead squirrel or something. And I have like a major teacher, like a spiritual teacher, sort of like a shaman. But I'm also friends with the clans here, and I'm friends with a dog man that happens to live nearby too. Because if you're friends with
impressive.
If you're friends with the Sasquatch people and you pass the audition for the dog man, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you ask how it works. They showed me just recently, last couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about 1,000 Sasquatch. They showed me just recently, last couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about 1,000 Sasquatch. They showed me just recently, last couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about 1,000 Sasquatch. They showed me just recently, last couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about 1,000 Sasquatch. They showed me just recently, last couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about 1,000 Sasquatch. They showed me just recently, it is. Couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about.
I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, I'm wondering what it is. Couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about.
I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, I'm wondering what it is. Couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about.
I'm getting some feedback.
Oh, yeah, I'm wondering what it is. Couple of weeks, they showed me that there's about.
I'm getting some feedback.
I have trouble with. You gotta wear headphones or something. That's the thing that I have trouble with. You gotta wear headphones where that feedback's coming from. That's the thing that I have trouble with. You gotta wear headphones where that feedback's coming from. I turn my speakers off, so I don't even say something. It seems like I can hear you. I can't hear you. I turn my speakers off, so I don't even say something. It seems like I don't know what that's all about. I turn my speakers off, so I don't even say something. Seems like I don't know what that's all about. I turn my speakers off, so I don't even say something. Seems like I don't know what that's all about. I turn my speakers off, so I don't even say something. Seems like I don't know what that's all about. There you go. Can you hear me now?
I still have a little bit of feedback. There we go.
Still got a feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
There we go.
Still got a feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
There we go.
Still got a feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
There we go.
Still got a feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
There we go. I don't have any other programs open. There we go. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
You fixed it.
I don't know if it's fixed or not. It seems like a ghost in the shell to me. But anyway, I was shown there's like around 1,000 Sasquatch, and they're connecting to and monitoring around 4 million humans.
Wow.
That means every person who clicks on a video to watch a video, or joins a group, or makes a comment, or feels like going out in the woods, the Sasquatch know about it. because what they're doing with those people who are excited about Sasquatch or want to learn more about Sasquatch or want to be an investigator, they're actually bringing them along to become friends.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what their goal is to be. There was a time when we lived alongside a Sasquatch. We lived in the same area, and they were our brothers. And just like the American Indians, live with Sasquatch, and Sasquatch want to get back to that. But what they're doing now is they're taking the people who have open hearts, of opportunity, people who've been Sasquatch in another lifetime. There's actually quite a few people who've been a Sasquatch in another life. And so they're getting the ones who are most closest to them and that they can trust, and they're being friends with them. And from what I can tell, there's maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people that are friends with Sasquatch, that are considered family from the Sasquatch. And so that's what the Pork and Beans is all about, just to let people know you can be friends. You can be friends. Friends is a good thing. Friends has benefits. Yeah. But it has to do with the greening of humanity, right? That we're trying to sprout this new understandings of being all one and enlightened and awake and aware, right? And
Right.
And being back connected with nature and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's this push that's going on in the world, around our world, off our planet. It's called the Inside Out Team. And the first members of the Inside Out Team was God and the angels. And because when you ever hear of a near-death experience that people have had, and because there's definitely millions and millions of people who've had near-death experience in the last 70 years. And that what happens is they go up to heaven, they see God, they talk to Jesus, or they talk to whatever the relatives, and they learn some things, and they come back. And this changes them from the inside out, right? And they're more connected to nature. They're more connected to themselves. They know that God's there. They know that there are infinite beings, that there is no death. You see what I'm saying? This changes them from the inside out. So that's probably the one of the main ones is God and the angels. But then there's also the ET people. Okay, now the ET people have been connecting with humans since the 1920s. The first autopsy photographs that they ever had of human beings doing an autopsy of an alien was in 1920. Okay, and we've had space travel. We've had space travel and time travel since the 1950s. Right now, there's like 6 different kinds of time travel, but that's another whole story. But the ETs, they start off the same way that the Sasquatch start off. They're monsters. They're alien invaders. They're going to eat you. They're going to invade the earth. You know what I'm saying? All the movies and propaganda about how bad and evil and monsters they are.
Right.
They're not that at all. They take you on a craft. They put you in a much higher energy. The crafts are much higher vibrational energy, so your energy in your whole body raises. They heal you a little bit. They check on you physically, and then they send you back. And they do that a bunch of times. And after years and years, what happens is the data shows that 80% of the people who've been on craft multiple times don't want that contact to end. It's the best thing that ever happened to them, right? Because it's the inside out. They've transformed spiritually. They transformed their mind. They opened their mind. They know that there's other realities. They know that there's this love vibration. There's a unity thing going on. Yeah, and then there's the rock people. That was how I got started with the Sasquatch people. They took me the very first time I had any interaction with them at all. They took me in a vision and had me talk to this rock god. And I was in Miami, Florida, and the rock god was out in, I don't know, Santa Fe, New Mexico, or Albuquerque, or someplace like that. I don't know where it was, but it was big red rocks and big red cliffs. And these 2 American Indian shamans they were like little 4 foot tall guys, 5 foot tall guys. I mean, they're like the small Mexicans. They said, sit on this rock and talk to that rock. And then this rock and that introduced himself as a rock god. This is the Sasquatch sent me to go get an education from the rock god about what's up. And the rock god went into the whole history of the earth from the time it was nothing till life started to come. And then the rock god said, water and rock make life. And then the first thing that life makes is more water and rock. And they went all the way up the food chain. And I was talking to this guy, this rock god, for 3 hours, right?
Wow.
3 hours, right? And he finally got into human beings. And he said, water and rock make life. And then in the human beings, our bones and our teeth are the rock. And our water is our blood. And he said, the blood for your body is created in your bones. So water and rock make life, right? And they showed me this whole thing. And that was 3 hours. I was pretty much mind blown. I noticed what time I went to bed, and then I woke. I was just awake the whole time. So then I sort of, when I came out of that, I knew it was 3 hours. And I told my son about it. Well, I said, this happened. He goes, oh man, you had a shamanic dream or whatever. Okay. Then the day they talk, I'm wide awake, walking around, and this rock's talking inside my head. And the rock said, what did he say? He said, the rock people wanted to bring light to humanity. Light. Then he showed me about Nikola Tesla and the electricity, and how, you take a rock magnet, right, which is iron that has magnetized, and take copper wires, and then you spin it with water, and it makes electricity. And then the electricity makes light bulbs, right? That's where GE, General Electric, and all that kind of stuff comes from. Makes light bulbs, right? And I said, well, that was pretty mind blowing. They brought electricity. So all electricity doesn't come from aliens, doesn't come from the Godhead. It comes from the rock people. The rock people, for them, they know that the copper is rock and the iron is rock, and they knew they've done this before, right? They know what it's all about because they're connected. So anyway, then the next day it was like electricity, and then the next day after that they showed radio, television, and the internet, right?
Right.
So now we're talking 3 days out, right? First night, this next day, and next after that. And we're now already in the internet because they said the rock people wanted to have humans connected, right? Okay, then the next day after that, the rock people, it was not next day, it was actually a couple of months later, I think. And the rock people started talking about quantum physics. They said, the rock people said, we want humans to understand the physics of consciousness, the science of consciousness. And in order to do that, that's what the double slit experiment was, with the start of the physics, right? Which was light coming out of this little box and hitting a screen. And then it was either collapsed or not collapsed by how you looked at it, right? So that in the 1920s, 1913 to 1920s, the physicists all said that consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is fundamental.
Huh.
There's electromagnetism, the weak and strong nuclear force, gravity, and consciousness. And they also said that the number of minds in the universe is one. Now this gets back to what the Sasquatch are doing. They live in the all one and no space, right? So the whole foundation for science and electricity and the internet and all that kind of stuff was actually done by the elementals, which is the sun, which is fire, earth, water, yeah,
Right.
and air, right? Those are elementals, and they are the foundation that everything is built from. And okay, so getting back to Sasquatch, they were answering my question is this friend of mine, Thomas Hughes. I asked him, he was talking to his plants around his house and asked him, giving him credit for like talking, right? So I said, I asked him, well, how does it that he was part Indian, and Indians talk to everything like they're their brother, talk to the trees, listen to the rocks, which is a Sasquatch saying. That's the whole reality that the Indians live by. Everything is your brother, and you can talk to everything, right? And so that was the big lesson for me, because if you can talk to a rock for 3 or 4 days, then you can talk to everything. That means everything in the universe is conscious. And this is also what the Godhead says. People who have the near-death experience, everything in the universe is conscious. There's only consciousness and love. That's what it is. We're eternal beings. And then that's also what the ETs say. The ETs say, we are you. We are you from the future. We're one. There's a fundamental unity. And you start to get the themes here. So this is the same kind of stuff that's going on. So what's going on with Sasquatch people is they're in the next wave. They're in this next wave of Team Inside Out. And they're picking people to talk about Team Inside Out. They don't call it Team Inside Out. Only the ETs call it Team Inside Out. But to awaken humans from the inside out. And that's what we're seeing on the planet. Everybody's waking up to the past and waking up to lies, waking up to Sasquatch, waking up to cryptids, waking up to paranormal, right? We're waking up to all that kind of stuff. We're accepting it. And so the foundation was already set by the rock people and the water people for a long time. The whole internet thing, the whole culture, it was all kind of set up for us. So that's kind of one way of what's going on. And so Sasquatch people don't think like we do. They don't think as much as we do at all. They don't think. They don't rely on thinking. They rely on a higher vibration. Although they can think and they can communicate and they can write books, and they've written a bunch of books so far. But their mind is much, much quieter. Like I said, I used to be like a yogi, an ex-yogi, and I did meditation for years. And then I got to high enough in that meditation to where I could actually see the light inside of my head, whole being filled with light, whole being filled with love. That's called God realization, which is kind of an intermediary step between God realization is the intermediary step between that and full enlightenment. So everybody has knowledge of God. You go to a church, you walk in nature, you just get the feeling there's a God there. That's knowledge of God. Then there's God realization, where you actually make it real inside of you and you experience it. For this, you need a teacher and an initiation. And then there's complete enlightenment. And I personally have met 4 enlightened men. Like, people have never met a Sasquatch. They don't really know what Sasquatch like. And you have to rely on the people who've seen them. And the people who've seen them tell stories. It's the same thing. Most people have never seen an enlightened man in their life. They don't know what that's like. They don't know what it is. They don't know what it feels like. But from my point of view, when I connect to my Sasquatch brothers, right, I'm connecting to somebody who's like one of the highest beings on this planet, the most intelligent, highest beings on this planet. And that's not really a popular way of looking at it, because everybody's got these blinders on of wood ape or monsters and stuff like that.
Right.
So they're not looking up. They're not looking up to, like, what is the highest being on the planet? What does it even mean to be a high being? These people, they go into their own world, right? When they go invisible, they go into their own world, and they can, in fact, and do go into the Godhead. If one of their friends dies, they'll go to the Godhead and say, hello, Ed. All your questions are going to be answered. They can go to the Godhead while they're in this physical body. These are very, very, very high beings. They have, and their spiritual pressure is phenomenal. One of the reasons why they don't want to be around people is because they can overamp them really easy. Like you've heard of you've heard of like what do they call it, infrasound?
Yes, I have.
And then what are some of the symptoms of infrasound?
Dizziness, off balance,
Nausea.
inside their organs are hurting.
Yeah. Okay, and that's just when they're a little bit pissed off or they just want to send you a message or make you go away. If you can imagine that power that they have and flip it around to heart and God and bliss and unity consciousness, they can do that. They can transfer their experience into you. And I've talked to a lot of people who've had that, where they're just, they come and become initiated into the same kind of heart light, the same kind of God light that they're on. So you're looking at people who are masters. You're talking like guru style. Like I said, I've met 4 enlightened men, and the Sasquatch are equal to or higher than them. And the men that I'm talking about, the human beings that I'm talking about, is people who can initiate you into God, right? If you want to know if a man's really enlightened, you can ask him 2 questions. 1 is, do you know God? And 2, can you show me God? And a true enlightened man can not only will say, I know God, and I can show you God. And what they do is they transfer their energy into you, which is a frequency. It's like this powerful frequency. And off you go. You meditate on that. That's what enlightenment means. Sasquatch can do the same thing.
See, I interviewed a guy the other night, and he was talking about what was his purpose with a clan of Sasquatches. It's like every time he went in the woods, they befriended him, and they let him get close, and they were trying to teach him something, but he wasn't for sure because he was in shock and awe. And this went on for months. And they would leave gifts for him and everything. So I hooked him up with my medium last night. And she told him that they wanted to be friends and teach him.
That's good. That's what they're doing. And they're doing that a lot. They like to work behind the scenes, not up front. And a lot of times you might have to get a psychic or a medium to find out what's real is going on, because they operate on the invisible and non-verbal level. And you have to be able to match them or tune into them on the invisible and non-verbal level. Okay, now I just told you a great story, right?
Right.
About this, right? About a
Right.
rock. So we look at this as just a rock, right? But to them, they're saying, this is a creator being. I'm going to give you this gift of the creator being. Water and rock make life, and this is the fundamental function. You see what I'm saying? This is a God here. You see, they're working on a completely different level than we are. So you get a rock and you go, oh, wow, it's a pretty rock. It's pretty. It's not. This whole evolution of life on the planet came from a rock and water. You see it? You see the difference?
Yeah.
It's a whole different story there. So when they give you gifts, they just give you some sticks or a rock or a feather. But to them, it's a completely different story. And it's up to us to feel into it, right? To put it together, 1 and 1 and 1. Yeah. That whole thing, when they showed me, I didn't even know it was a Sasquatch when I went and talked to that rock for 3 hours. But then I realized, oh, I asked this question out loud. What does it mean? Who talks to trees? Because at that time, 2012, I was like a pretty spiritually well guy, but I didn't talk to trees or rocks, or I didn't see everything as living. Right? I didn't. So it was news to me that the trees can talk to you, the rocks can talk to you, the air can talk to you, the clouds can talk to you, the moon can talk to you, the planet Earth can talk to you, any mountain can talk to you, a stream can talk to you, a lake can talk to you. You see what I'm saying? That is the place where the American Indians used to live, and still where the Sasquatches are living now. They live in this thing called the all one and no space.
Huh. That's very interesting.
It took me a long time that without any words to learn about no space.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, remember when I told you that there's like around 1,000 Sasquatch elders that are connecting to and monitoring and guiding around 4 million people?
Right.
They do that in no space. That's how they do it. I'll give you an example. Like here I am in Savannah. Where are you?
Lexington, Kentucky.
Okay, you're Lexington. You're East Coast, right?
Right.
So there's me right here, and there's a space between me and my camera, right? And then there's a space between my camera, goes all the way to Lexington, Kentucky, to you, and then there's a space from your camera to your face, right? That's how we operate here, 3D world. But to them, they don't have any space. There's no space. So that means they're inside me, simultaneously inside you, and they're in you, in me, and as them at the same time, simultaneously. This is how it works. That's how God works. That's how the universe works. And also, no space also means no time, because there's not this space over here and this space over here, and how long does it take to go between this space and this space? It's time. But if there's no space, there's no time. That's another thing that they can do. They can read your Akashic records. When they go to people's houses and look in the window, and they look in the kid's window, they're reading the full future of that child's life. Or when they go into when they go into a campground and they pick a tent and they go and they'll sit right next to the tent, maybe poke the tent or make little noises or something, but you know that the Sasquatch is right outside the tent. And when they get close to you like that, they can read your whole life from birth to death. It's the same thing as the Akashic record. It's the same thing as a past life review, a life review when you go on a near-death experience and you have this life review. Yeah, well, that's a real thing, and that's how they can tell who's going to be their friends and when they're gonna, a lot of this stuff, right? Like this mysterious to us, like you hear, oh, a Sasquatch just walked in front of my car. It was random, right? That wasn't random, right? They were watching this person for a while, and then they looked into the future, and it says in the future there was an event where they saw a Sasquatch. And they were just waiting, and when the future comes around, that's when they do it. So almost none of their sightings are random or accidental. Same thing with Dogman too, because they pick the time. And here's the other thing they can do. If, let's say, somebody's wants to be friends with them, and is a 40-year-old guy, and he's likes to go on hiking, and he just feels connected to the Sasquatch people, right? They can actually go back to when he was 7 years old, find a time when he was in the woods or was out playing, and just one of the Sasquatch will just stand there. And then here's the guy's like he's 7 years old, right, or 10 years old, something like that. And then he grows up when he's 45, and he goes, oh, I remember this. When I was 7, I saw a Sasquatch. It works both ways like that. So their Sasquatch are teaching us how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It really is.
It is, yeah. And it is out of compassion and brotherhood. They're waiting for us to mature. Now, there's people who are like still into hunting, and I'm going to go out and shoot a Sasquatch, or I'm going to grab a picture, right? You're a predator. I want to get this picture, or you're a pervert, right? They feel that. And, you have to be willing to like not go out and pester them, be a true friend, and not try to record them or make an ego bonus thing out of your experience. just be a true friend, right? It's sometimes in this age, it's hard, and the reason why people aren't friends is they immediately put them into an unknown animal who thinks less than we do. Now, I just showed you that a rock is more intelligent, has a longer memory, and makes things happen, right? So this whole idea that we're at the top of the food chain when it comes to intelligence and making things happen, that's just not true anymore. No, we're not the top of the food chain when it comes to intelligence. I'll tell you a story. This is an interesting story. Two weeks ago, we had this guy on the Pork and Bean Show, and he's having really strong friendship relationships with the Sasquatch people, and he has a partner. His partner goes out with him, and they talk to the Sasquatch, and they're having experiences of the Sasquatch and all that. But his friend had been on a spacecraft, right? He had been on a spacecraft years before, and this spacecraft, he said it was 10 miles around and 100 miles long. So this is like a big mothership.
Wow.
And I don't know what he was doing on there, but he said he was had an escort. The guy was walking him around showing him the ship. And they went past this big room, this like a big hall, and the escort was an ET. And so he was looking at this hall, and there's all these people doing stuff. I don't know if it was like a cafeteria or something. I'm not sure what it was. He said on one side of the hall, a door opened up, and this Wookiee side thing, this Sasquatch type being walked into there, right? And this guy was taken back because he had never really seen that, right? He saw all these intelligent alien-looking beings, all these people with their, glowing and all this kind of stuff. And he walked through this room and went out to another door. And because the ET was psychic, this guy was judging him, saying, well, how'd they let that guy on board? And then his guide, right? The guy one was giving the tour guide of the ship said, "Oh, said those beings are considered the most intelligent beings on this craft." And so they're the highest and most intelligent beings on this craft. And the guy asked, "Well, how many different species do you have on this craft?" And he said, "Around 37 on the craft now." You see, so the reason why I'm talking about this is to try to break this confinement of who the Sasquatch people are. You're looking in the wrong direction. They're guardians of the earth. They've been here for 5 million years. We've been here for 2 million years. And they're just, and they stayed connected to the earth the whole time. But they spiritually evolved. Yeah.
That's amazing. That really is. So there is a correlation between Sasquatch and aliens then.
Oh, yeah. There's actually academic data on it.
Really?
Published papers on it, yeah. Yeah, there's, you ever heard of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters? You ever heard of that?
Briefly.
Yeah. That was my friend Ray Hernandez. He started getting visited by the ET people. And see if I can pull this up. Sasquatch knows. Yeah, pull it up. Okay, so he's in Miami. I knew him from Miami. He's in Miami one night, and this ET comes in, and the whole craft comes into his living room, and it came in like a shrunken, small little size. It was like 3 feet long and about, a foot in diameter. It was all made out of light. And his wife went crazy. He was saying, the angels coming in. Took his wife and his dog, and all this kind of stuff happened to him. And this guy, it blew his mind. He didn't know what to do about it. And then like 2 years later, he's driving his car. This, I guess, was 2014 maybe. He's driving his car down Expressway, listening to the radio, and they took him out and put him in this matrix reality. The ETs took him out and said, showed him this big spoke. And on this spoke, they said it had all these things like ESP, near-death experience, shamanic journey, mystic meditation, teleportation, invisibility. What are all the psychic phenomena that you know of? This like ghost, remembering past lives, and all this kind of stuff, right? Every psychic phenomena that there was. And the ETs told him, this guy's name was Ray Hernandez, the ETs told him, we want you to study the commonality of all these things and consciousness. Right? This is the ETs giving a mandate to this guy in Miami who's got, he's got 3 degrees, right? And then he gets flipped out. So he calls Mary Rodwell, who's a UFO researcher in Australia, and then she calls to whatever it was, to Harvard University, to her friend Dr. Ruby Shields. And Dr. Rudy Shields was an eminent professor of astrophysics. And anyway, the next day it was Ray Hernandez, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, and the leader of the astrophysics for Harvard, right? And this guy, Dr. Rudy Shields, took over as a leading expert in black holes. So he took it away from that guy, Stephen Hawkins. Anyway, so all these people had contact experience. And then by the end of the year, they had 11 PhDs. They had PhDs in neuroscience and consciousness studies and all this kind of stuff, statistical analysis. They put together this team, and they put out this questionnaire, of actual research questionnaire. It had 600 questions. It was over 3 phases. And the first compilation was 2,500 people, and it topped out at 6,000 people, right? And it was what happens to you as every kind of question could be. Did your life change? Were you afraid? Do you want to keep doing it? Well, what was interesting was on the second phase of the survey, they asked, what type of beings did you see on the craft? So what kind of beings did you see on the craft? The first ones were the light beings. They were like balls of light, or they're these robed beings with the light coming out of the robes, right? And there was like the light coming out of where the body's supposed to be. That was number 1. Number 2 was humans. And then number 3 was the gray types, big and small. And number 4 was, but it came down to the sixth, right? The 6th was small, hairy human types and large, hairy human types. And it was 14 and 17%, which is what, 31%? So 31% of the people who could remember seeing people on the craft, like this guy who was on the craft and saw all these different beings, 31% saw a hairy humanoid type, which is science for Sasquatch. Okay, that's pretty profound. So there's actually, in terms of actual academic study of a Sasquatch, you had to go to the UFO people to get any data on that. So I took some of that information and I made a list of the things that are common between Sasquatch people and the ET people.
Okay.
One of them is they both have mind speed. Number 2 is they both go invisible, ETs and Sasquatch. They can shapeshift. Both can be shapeshifted into animals or other things. Both are reported physical healings for humans. And both the ETs and the Sasquatch, when they connect to humans, they do it for life. Both contact humans early in life, as children, as sometimes infants. Both of the experiences are not believed by the family and friends, or they're made fun of. Number 8 is follow human family for several generations. This is really clear in both the Sasquatch and the ET people. Both have breeding between the humans and ET or with the Sasquatch. Both change lives for the better. 80%. Both do not change people at all with contact. That's 10%. And both do change for the worse, PTSD. So you hear a lot of PTSD stories, but remember there's an 80% that's not PTSD. Both give the reaction to the humans that they interact with as family. The ETs say, we are your family. And the Sasquatch say, we are family, we are one. Both give information about Earth history. Both talk about caring for Earth much better. This is the ET's talk, and this is a Sasquatch talk. Both talk about changes in the Earth and bad times ahead. Both the ETs and Sasquatch report walking through walls. Both can give an experience of being frozen or loss of control. Experiences of both know they feel that when they're around. So people who have known Sasquatch can feel them when they're around. Same thing with the ET people. All right, that's like 20. I've got 40. I got 45 of them here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Because people can only take so much of a list.
Right, I agree. But that's one hell of a list.
That was 19 out of 45, okay, of things that are what the ET can do, the Sasquatch can do.
Wow.
I mean, it's all out there. You just have to take notes when you hear it, when you've been listening to all the different shows, you know. So that's kind of a big one. I can add to that story too. There's this lady named Barbara Lamb. You ever heard of Barbara Lamb? She's a big UFO lady, and she does some Sasquatch stuff. And she used to be like a crop circle lady, but she also went down to South America to investigate UFOs and stuff. And what she said was when she went to South America, the South American researchers down there, the UFO researchers, they say that 50% of the people who are taken on craft say in South America that it was a Sasquatch craft and a Sasquatch crew that did the abductions and taking people.
Huh.
Yeah, huh. So in North America and Europe, they figure around 2.5%. So 2.5% of 350 million is, I don't know what that is. It's like 7 million, or maybe a little over 7 million people that have been taken since the 1950s until now, right? That's a lot of people.
It is a lot.
And if the numbers are the same in South America, right, that 50% of the people taken on craft say it's a Sasquatch craft and a Sasquatch crew, that would mean that the Sasquatch people not only have a part of them are star nations, but they have fleets of craft. The math doesn't work out. You can't, from the 1950s to 2022, you can't take one craft and pick up 7 million people. It's a lot of craft, right? And many of these people picked up, several times in their life, and sometimes in children are picked up every week. So that's the connection between Sasquatch and the ET people.
Wow. You just blew my mind away. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the data is there. You can look it up on the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. They're still doing research on that stuff. And it was that book that they published is what made the New York Times come out and do the first round of this disclosure in, I think, 2017 or 2018, because they have this, they can't deny it anymore when you have an academic published paper and giant thick book about it.
Right.
So that's the same thing that needs to happen. That's the same thing that needs to happen with the Sasquatch people. There's not any real research going on. There's people going out doing investigations and collecting evidence. But if they want to get some research going, they need to get a whole an academic survey and model an academic survey, and then ask people a ton of questions. Has your life changed? Is your life better? it did. There's just hundreds and hundreds of questions that you could ask. Were you afraid? Were you not afraid? And on and on.
Well, that explains some of the stories that I hear about people and Bigfoot in the woods. Like I said about that gentleman, I have a female. She went through the same thing. Couldn't understand why a certain Bigfoot kept coming around her, and he wanted to be friends with her. He mind spoke to her, wanted to show her things and show her around in the woods, and that's when she noticed the tree structures that she's never paid attention to before, and her mind opened up, and he took her places, and as it started to make sense.
You talking about Tina Thomas?
Yep.
Yeah, you got to look. She's a good example of that. From out of nowhere, nothing, whatever, and then all of a sudden she gets this full press. She gets little rocks thrown at her. She gets, gets inspiration, gets thought placed in her head. She hears things, and then she gets this. Now she's hooked up with a mentor, which is like a young Sasquatch.
Yeah,
They're not like us. When they're born, they don't lose their memory because they've got this whole unity conscious thing, all one mind. And so a little Sasquatch and a baby Sasquatch is just about as comprehensive as an adult Sasquatch.
that's
So
wild.
That's wild. Yeah. So you should follow her. She's learning stuff every day. She's only been doing this for like 3 or 4 months, 6 months.
Yeah. Well, she's
Yeah.
actually the medium that I had hooked up with the young gentleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's good. I mean, she's still learning her powers and stuff, but she's on the right track.
You know how she got picked by the Sasquatch?
How's that?
She was broken human, crushed, really bad, emotional problem. But she recovered, right? And she spent a lot of time recovering, and she pulled her recovery back, and she got really good at this recovery process. And then she got to this thing where she's just going to give love all the time, right?
Yep, that's
true. So she would go out and love the trees and love the rocks and love the dogs and love the sky and love the birds, right? She just like give this love thing. She just practice that, right? More than a normal person who's not looking. Because she got this contrast between being really broken and deep pain and then into as much love as she can emanate. And that is another key to the Sasquatch people, is they are heart spirits. They are in their hearts, they feel their hearts, and they know exactly to the level and degree that you are in your heart. Like you can be bopping along, there's a lot of stories of people like they're going along on a trail, and then the Sasquatch yells at them or something, right? And you don't know, why would the Sasquatch yell at me? It's because you're not in your heart. Right, you're bringing your thoughts and your jokes or whatever. You're bringing your everyday stuff, what you think is everyday stuff. You're bringing that into their community, and they're going, "Wait a minute!" They yell at you, "Stop!" Right? But if you walk through there with, "I love the trees and this is beautiful and Mother Nature," you know what I'm saying? You're just feeling full and you're feeling love, right? It's a different relationship because they can understand that. They're heart spirits and they understand that. They know when you're in your heart and when you're not in your heart. And just a regular person, there's nothing wrong with being a regular person, but it's not the same as being in your heart. Right? You can be happy-go-lucky, have friends, a good time. It's not the same as being in your heart. It's like with Tina, you have to pull it up. You have to make it happen.
So that's awesome.
And not everybody does that. Not everybody is that broken or that repaired.
Well, she's doing a good job. I mean, I can say that. And I can also say from what I learned too was speaking with people like you have, that also determines your inner self when walking into the woods between Sasquatch's interference, or not interference, but interactions with you. They know when you're a good person or a bad person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes plenty of sense.
Yeah, and they have patience, right? If let's say you go through a nasty divorce or something happens, right, and or one of your kids died over overdose of drugs, and you have this shit happening, bad dark night of the soul happen, right? And you're like 35, 40, 42, right? And they'll watch that, right? And they'll watch and see how you come out of it. You're going to come out either better or bitter, right? If you come out bitter, they'll just leave you alone and just let you fulfill your life's path. But if you come out better and with gratefulness, and you healed, and you forgive everybody, and you go back to nature, and you just feel like the unity of the earth and the nature and stuff like that. You kind of transcend, or you grow beyond pain, the darkness of the soul. Then you're in a place that it's just pure mind. You don't want to hear about whatever it is, what's going on in somebody's life, because you're on a whole nother level there. You're on a level of real. You're on a level of authentic. And they respond to that.
Yeah, they actually feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not hard to do either. You can actually be friends without wanting something from somebody, without manipulation, without trying to be one-upmanship, or with no jokes. You can. It's not that hard to be friends. You can be friends with your dog. You don't expect anything out of your dog. You're just friends. You know what I'm saying? The dog just takes you as the way you are, just friends. It's not that hard. And yet we have so much programming. It seems hard. Like, well, with each other, is he smarter than me, or does he have more experience than I do, or is he richer, or she? We have all that other kind of crap going on. But people are people, and dogs, trees, everybody. You can be friends with them all.
You know what, Mr. Harrell? I just realized with you speaking in the encounters that people have speaking with you, and the ones that have been speaking with me that do actually see Sasquatch, I just realized they don't have a camera on them.
No camera, no, they don't. They're not saying gimme.
No.
No. Just
I
friends.
just realized that. It just like a light bulb just went off. That's like the young gentleman that Tina's working with. He doesn't go in the woods with cameras or cell phones.
Because they don't want it. Look, they lived here 5 million years, and they lived here that long by not being seen. It is their law. It is their culture. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be heard, and yet they want to connect with other humans. And they want to connect on the heart level, behind the scenes, inside you. They'll let you know, like if you're you're excited about being a talk show host, right?
Yes, sir.
How much of that do you think is yours, and how much of it you think is the Sasquatch poking you at the right time, at the right place? You got to poke. Do this.
You know
this
what?
Will be fun.
That's amazing you said that, because I never dreamed of doing this, and everything just fell in my lap one day.
Yep, that's how it works, and you assume, rightly assume, that it was you.
Yeah,
and I'm saying it was you, but there was a little extra energy put in from behind, invisible to you. A little extra energy says, "Yeah, do it," or "Yeah, that feels good," or "That's a good. I'm going to try it." Right? Little things like that. Maybe it doesn't even have words. It's just a little bit of a boost about something you're already doing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
And that's what they're doing with this 4 million people. I think I'll watch How to Hunt today, right? A little poke. Oh, and then next thing you know, you're in the whole How to Hunt world, or the Sasquatch Odyssey, or whatever, Sasquatch, right? You're watching these shows over and over, and each time, wow, oh wow, you know what I mean? You're having these experiences, and the Sasquatch are watching you having these experiences. This is the biggest educational program ever in the history of the planet Earth, except for the ET people. What the ET people did, coming along from monsters to they're doing healings and abductions, and they're gonna and then breeding programs and mind control, and now at the other end, it's like they're friends. I want to keep being friends with them. It's going to be the same thing with the Sasquatch. Sasquatch hasn't got a good 40 years with grip like we do now. It's only been like maybe 30 years that Sasquatch has been forefront in our consciousness, and now it's Sasquatch everywhere, right?
Right.
You just watch. Eventually, it's going to end up with to be friends with Sasquatch is going to be one of the coolest things. Just like to be friends with an ET person, with the captain of a ship. It's like really cool thing. You know, you get information of what's going on and getting upgrades and all kind of cool stuff. Yeah, so that's what I see what's going on.
Well, I heard Eisenhower signed a treaty in '54 in a military hangar with the ETs.
Yeah, some say that.
And because
there was another one signed in 1920s too.
Really?
Yeah, and in the 1950s. Yeah, so there's been these treaties, and one of the things that has happened was the taking of people for experimentation and take them off world to other planets and stuff. Where all this missing 411 business is going on, a lot of that is off world slavery, off world population. You know, they take 500,000 people over a couple of years. They take 500,000 people and they put them somewhere, and then they're all asleep, and they kind of wake these people up and said, "Oh, we saved you. The Earth was hit by a comet. There's no more Earth. Now these people are living on some other planet, thinking that Earth is destroyed." That stuff's been going on for a long time. We got three or four space fleets now. We got the corporate space fleet, which is called the Dark Fleet. Then we got the secret space program, which is the military Dark Fleet. Then we got the acknowledged one, which is Solar Warden or whatever the one that Trump did. And there's the other one from the Nazis down in Antarctica, and they had stuff on the moon for I guess it was the 1960s. In the 1960s, they had stations on the moon, so a lot of this stuff's been covered up.
Yeah, because I remember Hitler making the flying saucer, and that disappeared. Yeah, and they said it never existed until the film footage showed up.
I'm pretty sure there's never been a time when we didn't have flying saucers on the planet. Like I said, in 1880s and 1890s, there was people out in California who had a flying club, and they had a motor for a flying saucer that somebody gave them, downloaded. The ETs gave them the directions on how to make it. They put it in this big like wooden ship kind of a thing, and they would fly back and forth across the east coast, the west coast, and they would fly down to South America and back. So there was an actual flying club, and that went on for a long time. And they ended up giving that thing to the government, and they didn't know what to do with it yet. But,
wow!
So there's been a secret government for a long and secrets. When you go back to like 2,000 years ago, they had wars and stuff with flying saucers. So there's never been a time when we really didn't have them as part of the mix.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You know, the ancient aliens, they had technology. They had electricity. So, yeah. And they were visited by ETs because, it's proof. They had the suits and everything. And there's glyphs on the wall that proves it. There's flying spaceships on the wall that's been painted.
Yeah. Well, you ever heard of the Ramayana?
No.
The Ramayana is okay. There's the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. Those are the two like main Hindu texts, right? It's sort of like the Old Testament and the New Testament, but the Ramayana is a story about this guy named Lord Ram, and he got some bad things happen to him. He was a prince or something, and he had to go out and live in the woods for a while. And then he started to get harassed by these what was actually off-world kind of demonic kind of guys. And then the Sasquatch people, which they call the mountain monkey men, came and helped him. And the whole of the Ramayana is about how the clan of Hanuman, the king of the mountain monkey men, which the drawings of them, they look like big Sasquatch, right? So the king of the mountain monkey man was so devoted to Lord Ram, and the Lord part was sort of like we say Lord Jesus, but for them it was Lord Ram. Although this was 600 years before Jesus, and all this stuff was going on, and then eventually Lord Hanuman went and sort of set fire to the hangout of the evil guys. They call them demons. The demon king set fire to their whole town, and they sort of like won that war. And then but one of the issues that they had was Lord Ram had his own army, but he couldn't take the men across the ocean to Sri Lanka to do war because he couldn't take them on the Vimanas, right? They had Vimanas was a flying craft. So by that time, they had outlawed any military use of Vimanas. But at the end of this the Ramayana, Lord Ram was flying around in his flying saucer, and so that was sort of like the end of it. What's interesting about that is that Lord Hanuman, right? Hanuman was a Sasquatch type guy. He was seen by the Hindus as the faith. He had such a faith in God and his God and his Lord that he did all these things. He did this and that, and he moved a mountain and all this kind of stuff, right? It was all this magic stuff. He fought all these demons and everything. And so he was the number one example of devotion to God, to have faith in God. He was the example. He was like supernatural. Well, to this day in India, there's more temples and statues of Hanuman than any other deity, because the Hindus have a lot of deities. They have Lord Krishna, Lord Ram,
Yeah, so
Shiva,
that on TV today.
right? All these guys. They have like about a dozen of the major ones, right? And
Right.
anybody, you can believe whatever you want, but all the people, the way to their temple, they all stop off at a statue of Hanuman, or a little house of Hanuman, these little temple worship things, and they ask Hanuman to give devotion, to give faith in the God that they're going to go worship, right? So if Sasquatch, if Hanuman was a religion, it would be the 6th largest religion in the world. With Buddhism is the 7th, because there's about 700 million people who go to Hanuman, which is a Sasquatch. They go to Hanuman and ask for belief, for faith in God.
Wow.
So that's who the Sasquatch people are to the Indians, right? We're still looking at them as mountain apes. They're looking at them, these guys are gods, and they can do all this kind of stuff, right? And then Christ, right? That was in like 2,600 or 800 BC, right?
Right.
It was like 800 BC, so that's like 2,800 years, something like that. But at the time of Christ, one of the things that Christ said, he said, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you can say to a mountain, come, and the mountain would come, right? That's Christ quoting the Ramayana, talking about Hanuman.
Huh.
So is that Sasquatch are actually in the Bible? spoken about by Christ. Yeah,
Okay.
everybody knew that story. The Middle East is not that big of a deal. A couple of weeks, a couple of months on our camels, and you can get from one place to another. So there's no way you're going to be in the Middle East and not know about Hinduism and not know about Hanuman, because it's like a major player there. So you got to, like I said, look how high these people are. I mean, they can go invisible. They can talk to you in your head. They can, move things around. They can save you or they can heal you. But these people are not, they're much higher and benevolent beings than we give them credit for, than usually give them credit for.
Well, that's awesome. I really do. You have blown my mind today and made a lot of sense. That it really does. It changed my outlook on a lot of things, and Tina has been a big help on that as well. So I guess you've been talking to her too, because that makes sense, and that's awesome. Because she's actually been teaching me.
That's good.
And
that's good. Well, you're on the cutting edge. If you're getting this input, right? There's no way that I'm talking to you without the stamp of approval by Sasquatch in my world, right? I got the green light in my world. Says, okay, we're gonna talk about Sasquatch. That's cool, right? That was like the thumbs up from the Sasquatch people. So they're giving you thumbs up,
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of the stories that I hear, or we can call them encounters, that have been negative, is when people's taking all this electronic equipment out and firearms and guns with them. And that's when all hell breaks loose, and they throw big rocks at them and big trees and grunts and growls to try to get them out and so forth. Makes sense.
Yeah.
They know their intent.
You're not gonna catch a Sasquatch. They're like I said, the whole culture is based on hiding. You can't be a 12-foot or 8-foot giant being running around trying to catch rabbits and trying to catch elk and stuff. If everybody sees you, their whole reality is based on hiding, working from behind the scenes, right? So there's no way. If when you're going to go out you ever go out in the field?
Yeah.
What do?
I used to hunt.
Yeah. And what happens when you're in your house? When do you decide to go out in the field?
Usually don't. It's usually on a whim or a whim.
Yeah. And then as you get in your car, where do you think you're going?
I never really thought about it that way.
You got 2 or 3 places you can go, right?
Right.
And you just drive into one of those 2 or 3 places.
Right.
You're seeing it in your head, which way you're going to go, where you got to turn, left and right. Maybe I got to stop over here and get a sandwich. Yeah, they know.
Right.
They know.
That's wild.
There's no question about no, especially somebody in your position, because you're willing to show both the good and the bad side. I have no problem with the people showing the bad side. If you think they're a monster and that's the way it is, that's fine. They're showing you the monster. That's what they need. That's what you need. Maybe you should stay away from them or like whatever. It's not your thing. So however people see the Sasquatch people is fine with me. I don't care. I know what I'm saying. I'm looking at it from a higher perspective because I've seen Enlightenment. I've been around this world. I've been to like 12 or 13 different countries to connect to saints and holy men. And that's how I can tell who they are. They're high spiritual beings, as equal to all our greatest saints and holy men. So, that's who they are to me. They're archangel class earth spirits. And okay, archangel, right? Archangel class earth spirits. And you go, oh, well, what about them throwing rocks and being angry and stuff? Well, remember the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Remember those
Yeah.
guys? Those are archangels. And they can lay your soul to waste. They can bring death and famine. And they can, you know what I'm saying? These, just because they're archangels are very, very high doesn't mean they can't lay you to waste. So Sasquatch seriously needs respect of like a magnificent being. You know, like if you see a whale in the ocean, you're gonna be awestruck, and you're gonna respect that. You're
Right.
like, oh my God, this is a once. This, you know what I'm saying? You give him respect. You give him respect that is due to this magnificent God created being.
Yeah. You're absolutely true. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Harrell, guest on the show today, really enlightened and opened my eyes. Hopefully he's done the same to you. If you'd like to be on the Grizzly show, all you have to do is email me at Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. Once again, that's Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. Once again, this is Grizzly from around the world, coast to coast. We'll see you at 6. Until then, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Something occurred.